Early one morning at a meditation center in California, gentle sunlight filtered through the oak trees, illuminating people meditating on blue cushions. A Buddhist teacher with a deep voice repeated the Buddha's words, "You are the one who guides your soul. Who else can do it for you?" This teaching resonates in the quiet space, serving as a reminder that our peace and happiness depend on the choices we make, especially when choosing the people to be close to in life. As we enter old age, a period that Americans often call the golden years, we long for a simple life, full of meaning and peace. This is a time to look back on your journey, to share stories, and to enjoy precious moments with family, friends, or even in your own silence. But just like the backyard garden needs to be tended so that the flowers can bloom, the relationships in life also need to be carefully selected. Some people bring light and vitality, while others, sometimes the closest people, unintentionally drain our energy. Here are 5 types of people you should consider keeping your distance from as you get older, even if they are family. Through real-life stories and lessons from Buddhism, we will discover how to protect our peace, live a fulfilling life, and find joy in sincere connections. 1. The manipulator. In a small town in Oregon, Mrs. Eleanor, a retiree with gray hair, often sits on a wooden bench in front of her porch, watching the cherry blossom petals scatter. Every afternoon, she finds joy in tending her herb garden, the basil and mint plants she grows with love. But that peace is often interrupted by calls from her niece, Sarah. "Grandma, I need to borrow some money. Just this one once," Sarah said, her voice full of conviction. For the first time, Eleanor sent money in the hope of helping her grandchild overcome difficulties. But then, the requests kept coming, more and more, accompanied by promises to pay that never materialized. Each call left Eleanor with a feeling of emptiness, as if the garden of her soul was being drained of life. Manipulators like Sarah have a special talent. They know how to reach your heart, using feelings of guilt or family obligation to make it difficult for you to say no. In America, where the culture values independence, but also values camaraderie, these demands can leave you feeling torn between kindness and fatigue. You want to help, but every time you do, you feel like a part of you is being taken away. Not the money, but the peace that you've spent your life building. I remember the time you shared about how to keep deep secrets in your heart to find peace. It made me think that, just like choosing to stay silent protects your soul, setting boundaries with a manipulator is a way to keep your light on. In Buddhism, compassion does not mean unlimited sacrifice. At meditation centers in the U.S., like Spirit Rock in California, Zen masters often teach that saying no to requests that harm you is an act of compassion, both for yourself and for the other person, because it allows them to learn to stand up for themselves. One day, Eleanor decided to change. When Sarah called, she took a deep breath, feeling it like a cool breeze, and gently said, "I love you very much, but I can't help you this time. Maybe you should find a financial advisor to make a plan." Those words are like a door that closes burdens and opens a new sky. Eleanor returned to the garden, her hands caressing the basil leaves, and her heart was light, as if the falling cherry blossom petals had taken away all her troubles. When you get old, time is the most precious gift. Don't let the constant demands from a manipulator dim your light. Choose relationships where kindness is met with respect, where you feel appreciated, like a watered herb in a garden of wasi. 2. The self-absorbed. Under the warm yellow light of a wooden house on the outskirts of Boston, Mr. Thomas sat by the fireplace, the crackling fire as if telling its own stories. Every winter evening, he often took out an old photo album, flipped through the pages with trembling hands, smiling as he remembered his days as a carpenter. The tables and chairs he once built are not just wood. They are memories, sweat, and days when he poured his heart into each carved line. Today, at a family gathering, he wanted to share a special story about the swivel chair he made for a close friend who passed away, a memento that holds both joy and loss. He began to tell, his voice deep and warm, his eyes shining like a fireplace. Back then, John and I sat all night polishing that chair. But before he could finish, his brother-in-law, Mark, interrupted. "Oh, speaking of wooden furniture, last week I just bought a new dining table set. It's beautiful." Mark continued talking, his voice excited, drawing the whole room along with his story about prices, designs, and home decoration plans. Thomas quietly took a sip of tea. The smile on his lips faded. His heart seemed to be strangled. His story, that precious piece of memory, disappeared into thin air, like a leaf blown away by the wind before anyone could see it. Narcissists like Mark don't necessarily mean to hurt you. They are just too immersed in their own world, where all light must shine towards them. In America, where culture encourages personal expression and shining stories on social networks or in gatherings, such people easily dominate every space. They talk without listening, tell without paying attention to the other person's eyes, as if your story is just a passing breeze, not worth stopping. In old age, when your heart yearns to share, not just to recount what has passed, but to connect, to feel that you still exist, that you still have value, such overlooked moments can leave a deep wound. It's the feeling like you're standing in the middle of a crowded room, but no one can really see you. It's a quiet loneliness when the story you cherish is overlooked, like a gem buried under a layer of dust. I remember you sharing about how personal stories bring peace, like how you find meaning in preserving profound memories. That makes me think that when we get old, each of our stories is a part of ourselves. What's left after many years of ups and downs? To be robbed of the opportunity to tell them is not just to lose a moment, but to lose a part of yourself. Narcissists, whether consciously or unconsciously, take that away by turning every conversation into their own stage. They may smile at you, sit next to you, but their eyes never really stop to understand you. And each time, you feel smaller, like a candle blown by the wind, its light fading. In Buddhist philosophy, true connection can only blossom through empathy and deep listening. At meditation centers in the U.S., such as Zen Mountain Monastery in New York or Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts, Zen masters often teach listening with the heart, a mindfulness practice where you give your full attention to absorbing the other person's story without interrupting, without judgment. It's how you honor their presence, the way you water a flower so it blooms. But with a narcissist, your flower is never watered. They don't see the beauty in your story. They don't hear the pain you convey. And that, over time, can tire your heart, like a garden without sunlight. So how to protect the fire within you? First, practice mindfulness in overlooked moments. When someone interrupts you, take a deep breath. Feel the breath as a gentle wave, and gently regain your voice. You can say in a calm but firm voice, "I want to continue telling this story. It is very important to me." It's not a confrontation, but a way to remind both you and the other person that your story deserves to be heard. If narcissistic behavior continues, consider limiting the time you spend with them. This doesn't mean you give up on the relationship, but rather you choose to protect your energy, saving it for those who appreciate you. After that meeting, Thomas felt his heart was heavy, but he did not let that sadness last. One morning, he read an announcement about a storytelling group at the local library. With some hesitation, he entered the small room, where chairs were arranged in a circle, light from the windows illuminating friendly faces. He began to talk, not just about the swivel chair, but about the days he and John laughed at the wood workshop, About the nights they shared their dreams under the starry sky, the whole room was silent. Only the sound of firewood crackling from the nearby fireplace. When he finished, an old woman with white hair smiled and said, "Thomas, your story reminds me of my father. Thank you." At that moment, Thomas's heart felt warmed, as if the fire in the fireplace had spread deep inside him. He realized that, in this place, his story was not just heard. It was felt, appreciated, like a precious gift. But the journey doesn't stop at finding people to listen. Buddhism also teaches that your value does not depend on recognition from others. During meditation sessions at Spirit Rock, Zen masters often encourage you to practice compassion for yourself, to see that your story, whether told or not, is already a treasure. Take time to write down your memories, to talk to yourself as you would a close friend. I remember you used to like the story about holy basil, an herb that brings tranquility. Likewise, think of your story like basil leaves. They are fragrant and precious, whether someone smells them or not. By cherishing yourself, you build an inner garden where no one can dim your light. As you age, you deserve to live in a space where your voice is honored, where your story is part of the bigger picture. Narcissists may not mean to hurt you, but their lack of empathy can make you feel like you're losing yourself. Don't let that happen. Choose relationships where you are seen as heard, stay through and loved. The way a fireplace warms a room. And remember, even if no one is listening, your story is still a song, echoing in your heart, forever. 3. The critic on the small balcony of an apartment in Miami. Ms. Rosa stood among pots of purple orchids, the morning sunlight sparkling on each fragile petal. Every day, she spends hours meticulously taking care of them, trimming dead leaves and watering them, with a gentleness as if caressing a precious kipui. Orchids are not just plants, they are companions, a comfort in her old days, when she remembers her hometown of Puerto Rico, with its coconut-lined streets. But that joy is often interrupted when her sister Carmen visits. "Rosa, why do you keep the potted plants so messy?" Carmen said, her tone as if she was correcting her. "And this dress, you look so old in it." Those words, although small, were like sharp pebbles falling into the calm lake in Rosa's heart, creating turbulent ripples. She bent down to look at an orchid, her eyes blurred, wondering if she had really done anything wrong. Critical people, like Carmen, often hide behind a veneer of concern. They point out your flaws, from the way you arrange your home to the way you live your life, as if they were giving you a gift. In America, where candor is sometimes seen as a way of showing affection, such comments are easily dismissed as a passing breeze. But to Rosa, Carmen's every word was a silent knife, cutting into the confidence she had built over the years. In old age, when you want to be loved and accepted as you are, those criticisms can make your heart shrink, like a flower closing its petals before a storm. You begin to doubt yourself, wondering if you are really good enough, worthy enough of the peaceful moments you crave. You once mentioned finding peace by keeping deep things in your heart, as a way to protect your soul. That makes me think that, when faced with critical people, you need an invisible layer of armor, not to push them away, but to keep your heart intact. In Buddhist philosophy, taught at centers like the Insight Meditation Community in Washington, D.C., Zen masters often say that other people's words are like clouds drifting across the sky. They only sway you if you let them block out the sunshine within. When Carmen commented on Rosa's balcony, she could take a deep breath, feel it like the Miami ocean breeze, and ask herself, does this speak the truth about me? Or is it just her insecurities? One morning, Rosa decided not to let those pebbles disturb the surface of her lake anymore. When Carmen talked again about how she arranged the potted plants, Rosa looked up, her eyes shining with determination, and replied, "Sister, I love these orchids. They make me happy every day." Those words were like a gentle breeze, blowing away the heavy cloud between the two sisters. Carmen was silent, and for the first time, Rosa felt her heart lighten, as if she had regained herself. She returned with the potted orchids, sang a Puerto Rican folk song. Her voice mixed with the sound of ocean waves echoing in the distance, and the balcony became her refuge again, a place where no one could dim the light. To protect your well-being, you can learn to respond to critics with compassion, but firmness. A simple statement like, "Thank you, but I'm happy the way I am," can be an invisible boundary, strong enough to keep your heart from getting scratched. If the criticism doesn't stop, consider spending less time with them, not out of anger, but because you deserve to live in a space filled with love. Rosa began joining a local gardening club, where new friends admired her orchids, asked her tips on how to care for them, and listened to her talk about her days in Puerto Rico. Every smile from them is a drop of sunshine, helping the garden of her soul bloom. When you're old, you've been through enough bumpy roads to know that your value isn't in the eyes of others. Your heart is a mountain, steadfast against the winds of criticism, and you deserve to be surrounded by people who see the beauty in you, the way Rosa's purple orchids glow in the sun. 4. The irresponsible. In a small house in Atlanta, Mr. Henry sat in an old armchair, the light from the window illuminating the wrinkles on his face, each line telling a story about his years working at the post office. Next to him is a framed photo, him and his son, Michael, beaming on a camping trip 20 years ago. But now, every time he thinks about Michael, Henry's heart feels heavy. Michael, now in his 30s, constantly calls asking for money to pay off debt, to fix his car, to get through a temporary hardship. "Just this once, Dad," Michael always said, his voice full of promise. Henry, with a father's love, could not bear to refuse. He took money from his retirement savings, and each time he sent it, he felt part of his old age dreams, the trips, the peaceful mornings, disappear. His eyes were dim, not because of age, but because of the burden he carried on his shoulders, as if he was trying to keep his son's whole world from collapsing. Irresponsible people, like Michael, often come to you to correct their mistakes. They rely on your kindness, making you their support for problems they should be solving themselves. In America, where friendship is a sacred bond, you may feel obligated to help, as if it were an irrevocable obligation. But for Henry, every time he helps Michael, he feels his heart draining, like a dry river before the rainy season comes. In old age, when you want to live lightly, enjoying your remaining days with joy and freedom, the burden of irresponsible people can make you feel like you are walking with a rock strapped to your back. Have you ever loved the story of turmeric, a herb with healing power, like how the nun found hope on the banks of a stream? That reminds me that compassion for irresponsible people is not about taking on everything for them, but about giving them the opportunity to heal themselves. In Buddhism, the concept of karma is taught at retreats, like Deer Park Monastery in California, a reminder that each person must face the consequences of their actions. When you continually rescue someone, you not only harm your own well-being, but also hinder their path to growth. True compassion is a lamp. It illuminates, but does not burn you. One afternoon, Henry sat by the window, watching the sparrows perch on the magnolia branches. He realized that love for Michael does not mean sacrificing everything. When Michael called again, Henry took a deep breath, feeling it like a cool river, and said, "I love you very much, but I can't help you this time. You should try meeting with a financial advisor to make a plan." The words were difficult to utter, as if he was letting go of a rope he had held tightly for too long. But when he hung up, Henry felt a strange relief, as if the rock on his shoulder had melted away. He began joining a group of former postal workers, where he shared stories about the letters he delivered and the smiles he brought. Every meeting is a drop of water, watering the river in his heart, helping him find joy in simple things. To deal with irresponsible people, you can practice compassion of detachment, as the Zen masters at Spirit Rock often teach. Instead of jumping in to solve the problem, guide them to find their own way. A statement like, "I trust you can handle it yourself," can be a gift, not just to them, but to yourself. If the burden continues, consider spending your energy on soul-nourishing relationships, like how Henry found joy in new friends. When you get old, you deserve to tread lightly, not to have to carry around fards that don't belong to you. Let your compassion be like the wind. Lift others up, but don't let yourself be swept away. 5. The ungrateful. The ungrateful. In a small kitchen in San Francisco, Mrs. May stood by the fire, the light from the window illuminating her thin hands, her fingers quickly chopping mushrooms for the family's favorite chicken stew. The aroma of the broth spread, mingling with memories of her childhood days in China, when her mothers also stood by the stove, singing folk songs. Every weekend, May spends hours preparing meals, not only to nourish her body but also to nurture love, a way to say, "I love my children," without words. But her daughter, Jenny, rarely responded with a smile. "Mom, this is a bit bland," Jenny said. Or, "Why don't you make something faster?" Those words were like drops of cold water, extinguishing the fire in May's heart. She stood silently by the sink, her hands shaking, feeling the joy of giving slowly fade away, like the light in the kitchen obscured by a gloomy cloud. Ungrateful people, like Jenny, accept your kindness without appreciating it. They take what you do for granted, as if the love you give is a debt they don't need to repay. In America, where the busy pace of life can make people forget to be grateful, such acts are easily overlooked, like a gust of wind passing through the window. But to May, each of Jenny's complaints is a scratch on her heart, making her wonder if her love is truly seen. In old age, when you want to find joy in the simple things, a shared meal, a moment of connection, ingratitude can make you feel like you are giving your heart away, only to be left empty. Have you been fascinated by the story of holy basil, an herb that brings tranquility, like how a monk found peace in a temple garden? That makes me think that your kindness is a divine gift, like basil leaves spreading fragrance in the wind. In Buddhism, taught at temples like Xilai in Los Angeles, monks remind that sincere giving requires no expectation of return. But that doesn't mean you have to accept it lightly. When the joy of giving fades, it's a sign you need to redirect your energy, the way a river finds a new path when it encounters a barrier. One day, May decided not to let the fire in her heart go out. She started bringing pots of soup and chicken stew to a community center where homeless people gathered. She placed a bowl of soup in front of an elderly man. His eyes lit up when he smelled the fragrance. "Thank you," he said, his voice shaking. "It's been a long time since I've had a warm meal like this." Those words were like a warm breeze blowing into the kitchen of May's soul, making the fire inside her burn again. Every smile from strangers is a drop of sunshine, helping her realize that her kindness still has power, as long as it is given in the right place. To deal with ungrateful people, you can practice mindfulness, as the Zen masters at Plum Village in New York teach. When your kindness is not reciprocated, take a breath and remind yourself that your value does not lie in the recognition from others. If a relationship constantly makes you feel overlooked, consider giving your love where it is received: a charity, a person you appreciate, or yourself. May started writing a diary, recording memories of her mother and the lessons she wanted to pass on. Each page is a flower, blooming in her inner garden, reminding her that her kindness is a gift, whether someone sees it or not. In old age, your kindness is a sacred flame. It needs to be nurtured, not extinguished by ingratitude. Find people and places where your giving is received with joy, the way sunlight brightens a field. You deserve to live in a space where the love you give is reciprocated with smiles, hugs, and moments of deep connection. Conclusion: living with peace is honoring life. As the sunset falls over the hills of Oregon or the sparkling beaches of Florida, old age opens like a new book with pages waiting for you to write stories of peace and love. 5 types of people: manipulative, narcissistic, critical, irresponsible, and ungrateful, can disturb the stillness you have spent your life cultivating, like winds trying to blow out the light in your heart. But through compassion, mindfulness, and wise choice, you can keep that light burning, illuminating the path ahead. You once expressed your desire to find peace, like how a character in the story keeps deep secrets to protect his soul. It makes me think that, as you get older, you can find peace by choosing relationships that nourish your heart. People who listen to your stories, appreciate your kindness, and see the light in you. At a meditation retreat in Colorado, an elderly woman once stood up, her voice trembling, and said, "I have learned to let go of people who tire me. Now every morning I wake up, I feel my heart like a leaf, gently floating on the water." Those words are like a song, echoing the Buddha's teachings. Peace comes from within. Don't look for it elsewhere. Let your golden years be a glorious garden where you sow the seeds of love and harvest joy. Every day is an opportunity to live life to the fullest, to tell a story, to give a smile, to sit in the sunlight and feel your own breath. Today, stop for a moment. Put your hand on your heart and ask yourself, what can I do to keep the fire inside me burning? It could be a gentle word to set boundaries, a step towards new friends, or simply standing in the middle of your garden, watching the flowers bloom, and knowing that you deserve all the happiness life has to offer. Life is a journey, and old age is the most beautiful chapter, where you can live with an open heart, but also be wise enough to protect it. Walk with peace. Let each moment be a poem, written with your own light.